I was driving to my mother's lake house for the 4th of July weekend when I realized I'd left the quarterly financial reports on my desk at the office. The reports my sister needed to review before our Monday morning investor meeting. The meeting that would determine whether we could secure the $5 million line of credit that would save our family's manufacturing company. I was halfway across the bridge when it hit me. The reports were sitting in my office, and without them, Claire would be unprepared for the most important pitch of her career. Our career. The business our father had spent 30 years building. I made a U-turn at the next exit. The office parking lot was empty when I pulled in at 6:47 p.m. on a Friday evening. Everyone had cleared out early for the holiday weekend. I should have been at the lake house an hour ago, helping Mom set up for the family barbecue. Instead, I was here, cleaning up my own mistake. I used my key card at the main entrance. The building felt different when empty. The fluorescent lights in the hallway seemed harsher without the ambient noise of a working office. My heels echoed against the tile floor as I walked toward the executive suite. That's when I saw the light under Claire's office door. I stopped. Claire had left for the lake house at 3 o'clock. I'd watched her pull out of the parking lot myself, waving as she drove off with her boyfriend, Marcus. Our company accountant. The man she'd been dating for 8 months. But that was definitely her office light. Maybe she'd come back for something too. Maybe she'd realized she needed additional files for the presentation. That made sense. Claire was thorough. It was one of the many reasons Dad had named both of us co-executives when he retired 2 years ago. She handled operations. I handled finance. Together, we were supposed to carry his legacy forward. I walked toward her office, preparing to tease her about being as forgetful as me. But as I got closer, I heard voices. Claire's voice. And Marcus' voice. I should have called out. Should have announced myself. Instead, something in the hushed urgency of their tone made me stop just outside the door. It was cracked open about 2 inches. The wire transfer cleared this morning, Marcus said. That's the last of it. By Monday, the account will be empty, and they'll be looking at a company with perfect books and zero liquidity. And the investors won't see it until after they commit? That was Claire. My sister. My partner. My best friend since we were kids. Not until it's too late. The credit line will be approved based on the financials I submitted. By the time they discover the actual cash position, the money will be transferred to our holding company. The existing business will collapse under the debt, but we'll have the capital to start fresh. Without Rachel, I couldn't breathe. Couldn't move. My hand was on the doorframe, holding me up, because my legs had forgotten how to work. She trusts you, Claire said. There was something in her voice. Not quite guilt. More like justification. She trusts both of us. She won't see it coming until it's done. That's what makes it work, Marcus replied. Rachel's so focused on keeping Dad's company alive that she can't see the bigger picture. This business model is outdated. The manufacturing sector is dying. Dad was too stubborn to pivot, and Rachel's too sentimental to let go. But we're not. We take the assets, restructure, and build something that actually has a future. And Mom? What about her? She owns 40% of the company. When this collapses, she loses everything. Her retirement. Dad's life insurance payout that she invested back into the business. Everything. There was a pause. When Marcus spoke again, his voice was colder. She'll have the lake house. That's more than most 70-year-olds have. And honestly, she should have pushed your father to sell years ago. This isn't our problem to solve. We're securing our future. Our future, Claire repeated. She sighed. Okay. So Monday morning, I present to the investors. They approve the credit line, the transfer happens Tuesday, and by Wednesday. By Wednesday, you'll discover irregularities in the accounts. You'll be shocked. Devastated. You'll call in external auditors. But by then, the money will be untraceable. Moved through 3 shell companies and converted to assets overseas. Rachel will be blamed for financial oversight failures. As CFO, she was responsible for catching this kind of thing. She'll lose everything, Claire said quietly. We're all losing everything if we don't act. At least this way, 2 of us survive. I pulled back from the door. My hands were shaking. My heart was hammering so hard I was sure they could hear it through the wall. 28 years. That's how long Claire and I had been sisters. We'd shared a bedroom until we were teenagers. I'd been her maid of honor at her first wedding. She'd held my hand through my divorce. When Dad got sick, we'd taken turns sitting with him at the hospital. And now she was planning to destroy me. I moved backward, away from the door. My mind was racing. I needed to think. Needed to process. But not here. Not where they might hear me. Not where they might realize I knew. I made it back to my office without being detected. The financial reports were exactly where I'd left them, sitting in a neat stack on my desk. My hands were still trembling as I picked them up. The reports Claire needed for the investor meeting. The meeting that would trigger the trap she and Marcus had set. I sat down at my desk, opened my laptop, and started going through 6 months of financial records. It took me 45 minutes to find the first discrepancy. Small. Easy to miss if you weren't looking for it. A wire transfer coded as a routine supplier payment, but sent to a vendor I didn't recognize. I pulled up the vendor file. The company had been registered 3 months ago. The address was a mail drop in Delaware. I kept digging. By 8:30, I'd found 11 transfers, totaling $2.3 million. All to shell companies. All approved by Marcus. All coded to look like legitimate business expenses. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. "Where are you? Claire said you were right behind her." I stared at the message. Mom. Who'd put her entire retirement into this company after Dad died. Who believed Claire and I would honor his legacy. Who had no idea her youngest daughter was about to rob her blind. I couldn't tell her. Not yet. Not without proof. Not without a plan. I texted back. Got held up. Be there soon. But I wasn't going to the lake house. Not tonight. I spent the next 3 hours documenting everything. Screenshots. Downloaded files. Paper trail. I copied everything to a secure cloud drive. Then I emailed encrypted files to my personal attorney with a subject line that read, "Do not open unless I specifically request or fail to contact you by Wednesday." It was nearly midnight when I finally left the office. Claire's car was gone. The building was dark. I drove home in silence, my mind cycling through everything I'd learned. The betrayal was one thing. The calculated cruelty of it was another. But what struck me most was the realization that I'd missed the signs. Or maybe I'd seen them and chosen to ignore them. 3 months ago, Claire had suggested we give Marcus more access to the financial systems. "He's so much faster at processing transactions than the previous accountant," she'd said. "Let's make him a signatory on the operating accounts so he doesn't have to run everything through you." It made sense. I was swamped with year-end audits. Marcus was efficient and detail-oriented. And he was dating my sister. Of course I trusted him. 2 months ago, Claire had pushed to move our cash reserves to a higher yield account. "We're losing money leaving it in checking," she'd argued. "Let Marcus set up something better." I'd agreed. Because she was right. And because questioning her felt like questioning our partnership. Last month, she'd suggested we each take separate meetings with investors to maximize our reach. "You focus on the financial institutions," she'd said. "I'll handle the private equity firms." I thought she was being strategic. Now I realized she'd been isolating me. Making sure I didn't build direct relationships with the investors who would ultimately blame me for the collapse. Every decision had made perfect sense in isolation. Together, they'd been a perfectly constructed trap. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at my kitchen table, drinking coffee and making lists. What I knew. What I needed to know. What I had to do. By Saturday morning, I'd made 3 decisions. First, I wasn't going to confront Claire or Marcus. Not yet. They thought I was oblivious. That ignorance was a weapon I could use. Second, I was going to the lake house. I was going to smile and grill burgers and pretend everything was normal. Because the moment they suspected I knew, they'd accelerate their timeline. Move the money faster. Disappear before I could act. Third, I was going to beat them at their own game. I arrived at the lake house at noon on Saturday. Mom was in the kitchen, making her famous potato salad. Claire was on the deck, setting up the grill with Marcus. "There you are." Mom hugged me tight. I was starting to worry. "Sorry. Work stuff." I kissed her cheek. She smelled like sunscreen and the lavender soap she'd used my entire childhood. Claire waved from the deck. "Finally. Come have a beer." You look exhausted. I walked out to join them. Marcus handed me a Corona with a lime wedge. Long night at the office? You know how it is, I said, meeting his eyes. Always something that needs attention. He smiled. Warm. Friendly. The smile of a man who'd been invited to dozens of family dinners. Who'd been welcomed into our inner circle. Who was currently stealing everything we had. That's why you need weekends like this, he said. Time to recharge. I took a long drink of beer. You're absolutely right. The rest of the weekend was surreal. I watched Claire and Marcus laugh and drink and play cornhole with our cousins. I listened to Claire tell Mom how excited she was about Monday's investor meeting. I saw Marcus put his arm around my sister and kiss the top of her head. And the whole time, I was planning. Sunday afternoon, while everyone napped off the barbecue food coma, I made 3 phone calls. The first was to my attorney. I gave him the password to access the encrypted files and told him exactly what I needed him to do on Monday morning. The second was to our company's external auditing firm. I told them I'd discovered irregularities in our accounts and needed an emergency audit starting Tuesday morning. The third was to Special Agent Jennifer Walsh at the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. A woman I'd met at a professional conference 2 years ago. A woman who'd told me to call if I ever encountered anything suspicious. This is going to sound crazy, I said when she answered. Try me. She replied. I told her everything. She was quiet for a long moment after I finished. You have documentation? 11 wire transfers. Shell companies. Offshore routing numbers. Everything. And the perpetrators don't know you're aware? They think I'm clueless. Keep it that way. Don't confront them. Don't change your behavior. Can you stall the investor meeting? I can try. Do that. I need 24 hours to set up surveillance and coordinate with white-collar crimes. If they try to move money on Tuesday, we'll be watching. What if they succeed? What if the money disappears before you can freeze the accounts? That's not going to happen. But Rachel? She paused. You need to be prepared for what comes next. This investigation will be public. Your sister will likely face federal charges. Your mother is going to be devastated. The company might not survive the scandal. The company won't survive if I do nothing. I know. I just want you to understand the cost. I understood. I'd understood from the moment I heard Claire's voice outside her office door. Some betrayals were so complete that there was no path back. No way to salvage what had been. Monday morning, I walked into Claire's office at 7 a.m. She looked up from her computer, surprised. You're here early. Couldn't sleep, I said, which was true. Too excited about the meeting. She smiled. It almost looked genuine. Me too. This is going to change everything for us. It really is, I agreed. I sat down across from her. I was thinking. Maybe we should push the investor meeting back a few days. Her smile faltered. Why? I want to review the financials one more time. Make absolutely sure everything's in order before we present. You know how investors are. They'll tear apart any inconsistency. Rachel, we've been over the numbers 100 times. Everything's perfect. Marcus triple-checked. I know. But humor me. Let's push it to Thursday. That gives us a few extra days to prepare, and it shows the investors we're thorough. We can't push it back. They're flying in this afternoon. The meeting's at 3 o'clock. Everything's set. I watched her face. Saw the panic she was trying to hide. She couldn't delay. Because Marcus had already moved the money. The books showed a healthy company, but the accounts were empty. If I looked too closely before the investors committed, the whole scheme would collapse. Okay, I said finally. You're right. I'm just nervous. Her shoulders relaxed. We've got this. Trust me. Trust me. The words hung in the air between us. I do, I said. And watched her believe it. The investor meeting happened at 3 o'clock. 5 potential lenders, all interested in providing our credit line. Claire gave a flawless presentation. Confident, articulate, passionate about the company's future. I sat next to her, smiling and nodding. Playing my role. At 4:30, the lead investor shook our hands. We'll have a decision by tomorrow morning. But I have to say, I'm impressed. Your father built something remarkable, and you two are clearly committed to honoring his legacy. Claire beamed. That means everything to us. After they left, she hugged me. We did it. Did you see their faces? They're going to approve the line. I know it. You were amazing, I said, because she had been. That was the worst part. Claire was talented and smart and capable. She could have built something legitimate. Instead, she'd chosen this. That evening, Marcus took us out for celebration drinks. He ordered champagne. Made a toast about family and future and partnership. I raised my glass. Smiled. And thought about the FBI agents who were, at that very moment, preparing to freeze every account associated with his shell companies. Tuesday morning at 9 a.m., the lead investor called. Good news, he said. We're approved. The credit line will be available by end of day. That's wonderful, I said. I was in my office with the door closed. My hands were steady now. Calm. I'll have our accountant coordinate the transfer. I hung up and waited. At 9:45, Marcus tried to initiate the wire transfer that would move the credit line into his offshore accounts. The transfer was blocked. All accounts flagged. At 10:03, Special Agent Walsh and 3 other FBI agents walked into our office with a warrant. I was sitting at my desk when it happened. I heard the commotion in the hallway. Heard Claire's voice, shocked and confused. I don't understand. What's this about? I walked out of my office. Claire saw me. For just a second, our eyes met. And she knew. She knew that I knew. Knew that I'd been playing her the same way she'd been playing me. Rachel? Her voice cracked. What's happening? Agent Walsh was handcuffing Marcus, reading him his rights. 2 other agents were boxing up files from Claire's office. I found the wire transfers, I said quietly. All of them. 3 months ago. 3 months? Claire stared at me. You've known for 3 months? No. I found them Friday night. But you've been planning this for 3 months. Rachel. Listen to me. You don't understand. I understand that you stole $2.3 million from our family company. I understand that you were going to blame me and let Mom lose everything. I understand that you planned this with your boyfriend while I was working 80-hour weeks trying to save the business Dad built. An FBI agent approached Claire. Miss Donovan, we need you to come with us. Rachel, please. Tears were streaming down her face now. Real or strategic, I couldn't tell anymore. We can fix this. We're family. We were family, I said. Until you chose this. They led her out in handcuffs. Marcus didn't even look at me. But Claire turned back at the door. I did this for us, she said. The company was dying. Dad was too proud to see it. You're too stubborn to admit it. I was trying to save us. By destroying Mom? By framing me? Collateral damage. That's business, Rachel. You should understand that. That's when I realized the person I'd known my entire life had never really existed. Or maybe she had, and I just never wanted to see who she actually was beneath the surface. The FBI investigation took 3 months. They recovered $2.1 million of the $2.3 million that had been moved. The missing $200,000 had been converted to cryptocurrency and was effectively gone. Claire and Marcus both faced federal charges. Wire fraud. Embezzlement. Conspiracy. Marcus took a plea deal and testified against Claire in exchange for a reduced sentence. She got 8 years in federal prison. Mom was devastated. Not about the money. About Claire. She couldn't understand how her daughter could do this. Some nights, I'd sit with her at the lake house, and she'd just cry and ask, where did we go wrong? We didn't go wrong. Claire did. But explaining that to a mother who'd raised 2 daughters and couldn't understand how one turned into a criminal was impossible. The company survived. Barely. The scandal scared off most investors, but a few stuck with us. I had to restructure everything. Bring in new management. Rebuild trust with suppliers and clients. It took 2 years to stabilize. Another year to start growing again. We're not where we were before Claire's scheme, but we're profitable. Sustainable. Honest. I hired a new CFO. Someone with impeccable credentials and zero connection to our family. I instituted new financial controls. Dual authorization on all transfers. Quarterly external audits. Separation of duties. And I learned something important. Trust isn't naive. But blind trust is dangerous. Love doesn't mean ignoring red flags. Family doesn't mean abandoning accountability. Looking back, The red flags were everywhere. Claire's insistence on giving Marcus more access. Her push to isolate our investor relationships. The way she'd minimize my concerns and redirect conversations whenever I questioned financial decisions. I'd ignored those signs because questioning her felt like betraying our partnership. Our sisterhood. The legacy Dad had left us. But the real betrayal was hers. Not mine. I visited Claire in prison once. 6 months into her sentence. She'd asked to see me through her attorney. She looked smaller somehow. Prison jumpsuit replacing her designer suits. Hair pulled back instead of professionally styled. "Thank you for coming," she said. I didn't respond. "I know you hate me," she continued. "I know you have every right to. But I need you to understand something. I wasn't trying to hurt you, I was trying to save us both. The company was failing. Dad built something great, but the market changed. We were holding on to a sinking ship. My plan would have let us start fresh. Build something new. Together. Your plan involved framing me, bankrupting Mom, and stealing millions of dollars. Collateral damage for a greater goal. That's not how ethics work, Claire." She leaned back in her chair. Studied me for a long moment. "You know what your problem is, Rachel? You're too rigid. Too bound by rules that don't matter anymore. In the real world, the people who win are the people who see past the rules to what actually works. And how's that working out for you?" She flinched. For just a second, I saw something crack in her facade. "I'll be out in 6 years with good behavior. Still young enough to rebuild. What will you have, Rachel? A struggling company and a mother who'll never forgive you for putting me here. Mom doesn't blame me. She blames you. For now. But give it time. When she's alone in that lake house every holiday because one daughter's in prison and the other's too busy working to visit, she'll remember that you're the one who chose prison for me instead of finding another way." That's when I stood up. "There was no other way, Claire. You made sure of that when you chose to commit federal crimes. You made that choice. Not me." I walked toward the door. She called after me. "Rachel. Wait. Please. I'm your sister." I stopped. Turned back. "You stopped being my sister the moment you decided I was acceptable collateral damage. Goodbye, Claire." I never visited again. 3 years later, I sold the company. Not because it was failing, but because I'd carried Dad's dream long enough. It was time to build my own. I started a consulting firm helping family-owned businesses navigate succession planning. Helping them avoid the pitfalls that had nearly destroyed us. Teaching them about financial controls and trust but verify systems and how to separate family dynamics from business decisions. I'm good at it. Turns out surviving betrayal by the person you trusted most teaches you a lot about protecting others from the same fate. Mom still lives at the lake house. We spend every holiday there. Just the two of us now. Sometimes it's sad. Sometimes it's peaceful. Always, it's honest. She asked me once if I regretted turning Claire in. If I wished I'd tried to handle it privately instead of involving the FBI. I told her the truth. I regretted that Claire made choices that required me to act. But I didn't regret the action itself. Because protecting her from consequences wouldn't have helped anyone. It would have just enabled her to betray someone else. "Your father would be proud of you," Mom said. "Of how you handled this. Of what you built afterward." I like to think she's right. But honestly, I don't know if Dad would be proud or heartbroken. Probably both. That's the thing about family betrayal. There are no clean emotions. No simple resolutions. Just complicated grief for what was lost and determined hope for what might still be possible. Last month, I got a letter from Claire. She's up for parole next year. She wanted to know if I'd speak on her behalf at the hearing. I haven't responded yet. I'm not sure I will. Some relationships can be rebuilt after betrayal. But some betrayals are so complete that the relationship they destroyed can never be reconstructed. You can forgive. You can move forward. But you can't go back to trusting someone who proved they'd sacrifice you for their own benefit. I learned that lesson the hard way. In an empty office on a Friday night. Standing outside my sister's door. Hearing her plan my destruction. And maybe that's the real story. Not the betrayal itself, but what you become after you survive it. How you learn to trust again without being naive. How you build new relationships while honoring the scars from old ones. How you carry forward, not by forgetting what happened, but by refusing to let it define who you become. I'm still learning. Still growing. Still sometimes waking up at 3 a.m. remembering Claire's voice saying, "She trusts both of us. She won't see it coming." But I saw it. I acted. And I survived. And in the end, that has to be enough.